Hey everybody, welcome to the Freelance Copywriter Sessions. I am here with Monique. Monique, thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've been a freelance copywriter for 14 years now, specializing in SaaS and tech. Turned over from the accounting industry back when the financial crisis hit back in 2000. So this is what I do full time, and I absolutely love it.
That's awesome. So what made you decide to get into freelance copywriting specifically? Because that seems like a bit of a switch from accounting.
It was. Definitely was. Back in the mid-2000s when the financial crisis was going on, I was working in mortgage. So if you remember that time, it was not good to be in mortgage. So I realized I need to do something different, wanted to do something, of course, way more creative than accounting. So found out about copywriting, started taking some classes, had a client here or there while I was being laid off and finding new work and all of that mess that was going on. And finally, in 2012, I realized that accounting really wasn't working for me anymore because I was having that creative flow from doing copywriting for a few years on the side. So mid 2012, I decided to take the leap and jump right in.
And would you say you're more of a creative person than a financial person then at heart?
Definitely. Even though that's what I did for, several years, I always thought, it would be really cool to write for a living. And when all that, financial turmoil was going on, I thought maybe this is a sign to switch. And I did. So, and it worked out really well.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't realize that copywriting is like a creative thing you can do that you can still get results from. Like you can still make a living off of it. People go, I just remember like I did an English degree years ago and I was like, well, what am I even going to do with this? Like what? I can write. What does that mean? Like, how does that help me in life? And then you discover copywriting and you're like, oh, wait, this can be a very lucrative career, right?
Definitely. Yes, it's a very eye-opening.
Yeah, 100%. And so would you say that as like a freelance copywriter, you have a lot of freedom like throughout the day to, do the things that you want to do or the things that you even need to do, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's very different and wonderful, when you have a doctor's appointment or you're not feeling well or, your pet's sick or something, you can take that time to go to an appointment or rest or whatever you need to do, or even run an errand in the middle of the day that comes up that you've got to take care of. And, for me, I just work around it. Either I work earlier in the morning or later at night, or I just take the day off and say, you know what, today is not going to happen. And I work longer the next day, or I work on a Saturday, and it's totally flexible. And I just adjust my schedule accordingly. So it really works out nice.
Mm-hmm. And like, how would you say, like, how do you manage your time? Like, how do you kind of hold yourself accountable when you're making your own schedule? Because I know for me, like, I've got a full-time job, and I'm not sure if freelancing would be great for me because I'm like, well, I want to take the day off. Oh, great. Next day, I'll take it off. Sure, why not?
Yeah, it definitely requires discipline for sure. I think my accounting background helped me with that because there's a lot of deadlines in accounting when you're doing payroll and financials and people are chomping at the bit. What do our numbers look like and that sort of thing. So I think that really gave me a good window into that. You have clients that say, okay, can we have this by Friday? Or, how fast can you get it done? Or something like that. It really kind of trains you to think, okay, I need to get this done so I can get paid, especially in the early days when you're just starting out. But you just kind of learn the discipline. It's work just like any other job. You just have to be held more accountable because you're the boss. There's nobody saying, when is this going to be done? So it just required a lot of discipline and structuring my days. Certain days I'll just do copy all day. Certain days I'll do training, or I'll be doing self-promotion. I've just learned to kind of flow with, what works best for me on certain days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess like time blocking your calendar probably helps a lot with that. And it's just, if you're on top of it, then you just have to, hold yourself accountable and you'll get there.
Yeah,
and it's
definitely.
And I guess it's like a skill like anything else, right? It's something that you have to learn. And if you haven't, have to put the work in to be able to learn it.
Definitely.
So how long have you been part of the 10X freelancer community?
I dabbled in it a few years ago and realized there was a lot going on in my life. And so I kind of got out of it. But I came back in at the end of last year, said, you know what, I need to, pay the full price and be all in and get this going. So I started, it was at the very end of December last year. So almost 10 months.
Nice. Yeah. And how do you feel? Like, have you gotten any, what value have you gotten out of it? Like, is it the community? Is it the training? What's your favorite part, I guess?
Definitely the community for sure. But I think the main thing for me has been learning the business side. Obviously, taking training, back in the mid 2000s and all of that, you learn how to write a sales page, you learn how to write an email. And a lot of the training that's out there focuses on that. But with 10X freelancers, you really learn okay, how do I run a day rate? How do I, promote myself? What are people actually looking for? So that has been invaluable to me, building authority. Those kinds of things have been really, really important that you really don't find in other training. And I've taken a lot of training over the 14 years I've been doing this. And it's wow, that's how you do that. Oh, I didn't even think of that. There's just a lot of little pieces that kind of come together that you learn in 10X Freelancer that I don't feel is out there anywhere else.
Right. Yeah, no, especially unless you're searching for very specific things, and it's right. You don't really get that from, especially copywriting courses. They'll, again, like you said, they teach you all of the basics. They teach you, even the advanced methods, but they won't teach you, how do you sell yourself? And that's exactly what freelancers have to do. You have to sell yourself. And if you don't, well,
yeah, not good.
Exactly. So, speaking of, building authority, or sort of related, I guess, how did you start off networking and building your client base, especially when you first started out and then to where you are now?
When I first started out, I was on a project site. So I really wasn't, again, I didn't have the training to know, well, this is what you're supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to do. But even though, that's kind of not, the best way to start, it did help me network and meet people who referred me to other people. So just kind of learning from that and, doing good work and, building the reputation there. And then somebody would say, hey, I've got somebody over here that needs a copywriter, and this person over here needs a copywriter. So that was really how I got my start. A little unconventional, but it really worked out well for me despite that, because I was working full time. And I didn't really have to go out and, pound pavement, so to speak. But, after that, just, referrals have really been, my biggest way to bring in clients. And then, of course, people will find me on my website or, word of mouth.
Yeah, no, and I think, I don't think that's unorthodox at all. I think that's how a lot of people get started. It's basically, we have this book that Joanna wrote, Your First $1,000, or yeah, that's what it is. Your first $1,000. And it's all about how you can get more clients and stuff. And I think the first or second chapter is literally just talk to the people you already know. Just let people know that you're starting to copyright or you're starting to be a copywriter. And then, from there, exactly like you said, it's referrals can get you very, very far. Yeah. So I actually had a question about the clients that you've worked with. Do you have any, what's the best, who's the best, not who's the best, because you don't have to say names or anything, but what's the best client experience that you've had? And, was it memorable? Why was it memorable? Just tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. I worked with a SaaS company from, I believe it was June 2021 to 22. Worked with them for a year. I was right on the verge of them bringing me in-house, but they went through some organizational changes. They got sold and they got rid of all their freelancers, and it was a little bit of a mess, but it was still a really great experience because I was in, a huge team, learned a lot from, everybody. Everybody was really welcoming. respected, and I learned a lot about, customer experience and how a SaaS company runs. And it's actually what inspired me to focus more on SaaS companies now. So it was a really good learning experience, just being that much, in the trenches, because I was pretty much working full time for them for about 6 months of the year that I was with them. So it was really, really fascinating to learn that. And it was kind of interesting being back in that world of being a corporate, employee. Even though I wasn't an employee, it was still, I had to, sign in at 8 o'clock every day, be done about 5 o'clock every day. It was kind of neat, but at the same time, like I said, it was a huge learning experience, and it really made me realize the other SaaS companies I had worked with in the past were also my favorite clients. So I was like, again, another sign that maybe this is where I should be, gearing my work towards. So
yeah, it's like, I guess I like SaaS. Who knew?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, until you really sit back and think about it, it's like, oh, those have been my favorite clients. And I think they're just not as stiff, I guess you could say. They're a lot more fun. They're a lot more loose. Everybody's really flexible. Most people are working from home, and it's just a much more loose and casual environment. So I think that makes it a lot better too.
Yeah, it makes you a little bit more comfortable, and, it makes you enjoy the work a little bit more when everybody's like all in it together. And
sure.
Yeah. So do you find that like, since you've started freelancing, you were able to try out a bunch more new things that you wouldn't have been able to try otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, no one day is the same, that's for sure. And you sometimes will get clients that have a business that you've never heard of, or an industry that you're like, I've never heard of this. What is this? So I'm somebody that loves to learn. So that has been also invaluable. You get to learn, you get to work with people. I think one of my first big clients was in Australia. So, who would have thought as a little accountant in the corner, that I'd be sitting here, on Zoom calls or Skype calls at the time, talking to people in Australia at 7 o'clock in the morning, or sometimes really late at night. I think I've worked with people, from, all over Europe, Asia, Australia, Canada, Mexico, Hawaii. I've had clients all over the place, and you learn something from each and every one of them. And it's pretty cool when you think about it. You get to, talk to all these different people and learn their business and help them grow their business. So it's been really fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, and do you feel like a sense of fulfillment from it? Like you seem super excited, like talking about all of this. So it's
yeah, it is. Going from corporate world to this, it's like, I can work with who I want to work with. If I sense somebody might be a little trouble, I can say, I'm a little busy right now. Maybe we can hold this off. But it's nice having control of that and working on the things that I like to work on. And like I said, I've learned a lot, not just copywriting, not just how to run a copywriting business, but, certain industries like SaaS, some of the self-help stuff. It's like, oh, wow, this is a really cool product. Or, there's just always something new to learn, new people to meet. So it really, I think I learned from this. I'm more of a people person than I thought I was. So it's been really interesting.
Yeah, I feel like whenever you're stuck in an office like all day, every day, and you're just kind of like trying to get your work done, it's a lot different than when you're like, oh, I'm actually, wait a minute, no, I do like talking to people. It's I didn't like being stuck in a room. That was the problem. Yes.
It's funny how that comes out.
Yeah, exactly. And so you mentioned that if you sense a client might be trouble, you kind of just, politely kind of push them away.
Yes.
How do you sense that? Like, how do you know that they might be trouble? Like, do you have any like clients, like horror stories or anything like that?
Oh boy, in 14 years, yes, I do. You can kind of tell how, you have a discovery call with them, and you can kind of tell with the questions they ask, that they're treating you more like an employee than a freelancer. One of my big red flags is when somebody says, well, this should only take you about an hour. It's like, no, It's not going to take me an hour. And you can tell they're looking for the cheaper option. And I totally understand that. But you also understand that they don't really value you. So, you kind of say, well, actually it's going to take this, and you give them a quote. And usually when you give them a quote, that's pretty much a deciding factor when they back away. So, there's ways you can talk to people, nothing, disrespectful or anything like that. But usually you can kind of weed people out by explaining the process of what you do, what it costs, the value of it. That usually will weed quite a few people out. But yeah, you can usually tell in the discovery call that some of the questions that you're asked are red flags for sure.
Yeah, and it's like, I guess that's also something that you learn as you go along too. It's,
Definitely.
You get better at reading people, you get better at probably knowing when someone's a good fit, because I'm sure you've experienced this where you meet a client and they're, super nice or everything, but you just don't think you'll work well together for whatever reason, right?
Yes. They're either treating you like a personal assistant. It's like, wait a minute, I have other clients here, or again, there's certain questions, about, how long will this take you and how much do you charge per word? And it's like, no, it doesn't really work that way. It doesn't really work that way. So, but yeah, you definitely learn as you go. Of course, when you're starting out, you're kind of taking on anything and everything just to get the experience and do that. And then, but you kind of learn to move away from that and, show the value in what you do.
Yeah. And I think that has to do a lot with, building your own self-confidence as well. Because it's like, if you always undervalue yourself, you're always going to kind of feel about it,
Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's hard when you first start out, because you're like, do I really know, the imposter syndrome, do I really know enough to be doing this, Yeah.
And I think everybody goes through that. It's like, in any job, really, it's imposter syndrome is like a big thing. It's just much more difficult when you're working for yourself, I assume, because you don't have like a boss being like, hey, you did such a great job, like right. all the time or whatever.
Yeah, you don't have an annual review saying, great, let's keep going. You don't have that. So you really rely on your clients' testimonials and feedback and pray for the best.
All right. Thank you so much. If anyone is looking to find you online, where might they find you?
Sure. My website is SaaS Copy Audits, so SaaS copyaudits.com, where I'm kind of rebranding myself. I'm going through the certified SaaS training through Copyhackers. So again, learning that's really where I want to go. So that's where my website is, and just building authority there, and people can go on there and request an audit or a hire me day. And there'll be some blog posts that I'm writing that'll be up very, very soon, building that authority.
All right, Monique, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.